Hey, welcome back to Whitetail Garage. This episode, we're going to put a power top in Rita. So originally from the factory, it was a manual top, and I got all the stuff, I believe, from CJ Pony Parts, no affiliation, but that's where I got all my parts from, that I think is going to cover me. It's the harness from the under the hood all the way through to the back of the motor, the new switch, the bezel, the motor itself, the new hydraulic cylinders, and the hose. We'll get all that dug out and get started with the install. I believe I've got everything I need. It's a kit that comes with the motor, the cylinders, and the hose. Then don't forget, if you don't have a power top, you have to have this bracket because your bolt holes in the center aren't the bolt holes that go on the motor itself, right? So the motor rides on those other, so it's a Dynacorn bracket. Make sure you get that bracket. Here's the power feed that runs from all the way from a breaker inside. I'm not going, this is not concourse. This breaker is, I think, like 68 and up or 67 and up, something like that. I don't remember, but there's another breaker that's for 66 that is paper. I wanted to go with the newer style anyway. Again, it's not a concourse car. Here's the switch, and then here's the bezel and the knob for the switch. So got all those coming. I did get the nut and bolt kit. It comes with these two nuts, it comes with these two bolts, and the square box nuts that go in the chassis. Mine in the chassis are fine, so I won't need the square box nuts that go in the chassis, but I like to have that factory hardware for this and for these, so that is coming. It hasn't made it here yet. The harness includes everything but the connection from that end of the breaker to the starter solenoid, so I'll have to create that connection, no big deal. So I believe that's everything I'll need to do the install. I'm going to start with the harness and getting the switch mounted, and then we'll move on to the pump and hydraulic cylinders. So the way I understand it, right down there where those three dimples are where you basically you pick one and drill the hole you need for the harness to pass through. The harness already has we'll just go look at it. The harness already has a grommet on it to pass through. So you're all set there. So this will be the harness that's under the hood, and then over here this connects under the dash. So, and then this routes back to the motor. So it's a 1/2 inch hole that I'm going to drill, and I'm going to go ahead and use a step bit because that will allow me to use this extension with the drill, which will make it really easy for going right between these two and drilling that hole out just like that. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, got that installed there. Right now I've just got it loose because I don't have traditional, or I don't have the original hold downs like in these spaces. I only have them over here on the shock tower. So I've pulled it through the shock tower with the rest of this harness, but I'll zip tie it up in that space when I've got final fitment. So I'm going to move on to under the dash and start working that side, and then we'll finish this up after we're done there. All right, so I went ahead and took the bezel and transferred it to a cardboard template, and I've got it backwards. There we go. Transferred it to a cardboard template, and then I'm going to take this cardboard template and transfer it over here onto the dash. Now, the great part is you know, these holes are like 1/4 inch or whatever they need to be for the pegs on this. The center, it doesn't have to be a slot. I can just do a 1/2 inch round hole, and that's going to cover that gap, and this will make it the slot, and it'll just be a hole on the dash itself, if that makes sense. So let's jump into that. Okay, now I've got the bezel and the switch aligned and in, and now I have to put these nuts on the back side of that bezel, which is not going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to do that off camera and circle back to you. So that was tougher than I realized. Those two nuts are really, really tough to get to. I believe you're supposed to remove the cluster for easy access to it. When I replaced this cluster, it was a real chore, so I thought fighting this would be better just coming from the bottom of the dash. It was tough, but I did eventually get it. And now we have the button is installed, our switch is installed, and so I just need to run the harness. Okay, I've got the cable, or I've got the harness run, and this is plugged into the switch. I need to push it up a little bit more. This is plugged into the power that runs through the firewall up front. And I've got a little extra here that I'll tuck up away, but as I pull through this, I mean, take a look at all the extra. I've got like that much extra because it's routed again through there, back through that grommet, over the top of that, up there, over, and right there with more than enough room to plug in the motor. So they make this extra long. I'm not sure why, because I'm following all the factory specs on where it should go. So yeah, it's extra long. So I guess I'm going to pull all the extra up into there and just coil it around the motor. Don't really know of a better place to put it. I don't really want to coil it all up under the dash, and really those are the only two options. So I'll pull this up and get this all tucked up next. All right, so I was just putting this in here, and looks like lining up those two bolt holes in the center, this guy's going to hit that frame rail. So this is a Dynacorn bracket, and I believe I've got it right. I think the nuts go up front, and it doesn't fit right. So I'm either going to drill new holes in that bracket to push it further back, which there's plenty of room to do. That's probably what I'll end up doing. Or I could notch the car right there. I think it's easier and cheaper to notch the drill two new holes further forward on that silver Dynacorn bracket and leave that like that. So for now though, what I'm going to do, because I still haven't gotten those bolts in from CJ, it was the last thing on the order that hasn't made it here yet. I'm going to go ahead and get these replaced. They're the spring assist. I need to get them out and put in the hydraulic cylinder, so I'm going to get that done now. A couple of things to keep in mind is the spring assist. You unbolt them down here. That's the bracket that holds it in, so you're going to drive through that. And then here's the top pin you have to remove. But keep in mind that that needs to be fully extended with the top up in order to make that work. This is only needed for the manual top, so I'm going to get that removed as well. That bracket will get reused on the other one. Right here is that pin you have to remove. Get that out and then pull this pin all the way out the side. Right there. Be careful, there's a washer on the back side as well. And you can see there are washers inside here also. You don't want to lose those either. This has a wavy washer on the end of it. All right, and grabbing both of these hoses by the center, you can find out which one is the long one and which one is the short one. So grab them by the center, and I pull towards the end. There's the long one, there's the short one. Now, the lower hose on the hydraulic cylinder is the longer one, and the lower hose attaches to the front of the pump right here. So top hose is shorter and attaches to the back of the pump. Bottom hose is longer and attaches to the front of the pump. The thing to be very careful of is these are O-ringed connections. And if you're buying all new parts like I did, the O-rings are already in there underneath this plug. And if you're not careful, that O-ring will fall out. So pay attention to that and make sure the O-ring is in position as you attach the hose. Bolt kit finally came in. Like I said, it's the square nuts, bolts for the lower bracket, and then the little nuts for the, like right there, little nut for the the pump to the bracket. So that's the part number right there. All right, pump is just sitting in here. I've got the hoses attached on the front and the back, and then hoses attached. This is bolted back in, and you can see right there the hose is attached on top. So we should be good to go on both sides. Now on to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pump bolted in, or at least the lower bracket. Go ahead and get that bolted in. I don't know if I can fill the pump with it installed, so I may wait to do that piece. But I ended up drilling 2 new holes in this Dynacorn, and you see I kind of offset them and put them more forward. That way it centers the pump slightly, just a little bit more, and pushes a little bit further back so that corner's not. I didn't want to have to cut the car. I'd rather, this little bitty bracket, just drill it out some more. So I did that. Otherwise, the bracket works perfectly for this application. And just shot it with some black paint so it doesn't rust. Okay, so I've got the breaker installed here with just some self-tappers because it has that bracket built in. Some folks just use that metal tab right off of it and hang the breaker off of this. Personally, I don't want that much more weight on here and that much more on the end of this. I am gonna obviously have to run the same gauge wire from here to here that this was, and I have that. All right, there you go. That's the last piece of the puzzle. I'll get that in, and then I still need to pull this back under the dash, get it all tied up, but I want to test everything before I do that. Okay, quick test for the motor. Both directions work, so let's start filling it up. So what I'm using is just this big syringe with a hose on it so I can get down inside there. That's my plan right now. I will say bad job on ACP's part. Here's the plug, which they apparently installed when it was still wet. When the paint was still wet, I guess, because it was seized in there, couldn't come out. Just pulling on it, ripped it in half. So, real awesome, brand new pump I gotta go get a new plug for. I think the pump is bled. I've got a couple of little tiny air bubbles in there, but I'm not going to fight those out. It is bolted in. So the next step is these clips. I'm going to put one here and one over there because these will get kind of pulled down in that sort of fashion like that. there's another piece of sheet metal spot welded right here. So I need to go just below or just above it. So that way I'm not going through two pieces of sheet metal. I think I'll go just below it, right here. Setting in there is going to set the rest of those down nicely. I might take a heat gun. You can use a heat gun to soften these up and give them a little bit of new shape. I might do that so they'll lay nice and flat. But they're pretty close as it is, so I'm not terribly worried about it. Okay, that's all done and installed. By the way, this is where I put my ground. I don't know if you noticed it earlier. I just picked a spot and ran through it. This is pretty thick sheet metal. I was able to get away with a self-tapper, but it is a pretty good size self-tapper. It's nice and solid. Again, on grounds, make sure you clean off that factory paint so you've got a good solid connection to ground, especially with this motor drawing this much power. So now the last step is to get these pins in and then operate the top. So we're going to do that now. All right, everything's connected. Let's test it. All right, well, that's the full power top conversion. Let me know if you have any questions. Drop them in the comments below. Don't forget we've got merch. Go to whitetailgarage.com for merch and what's available there. Like and subscribe. Plenty more content coming. Let's go ahead and put the top back up, though. That's nice. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.